a combination platter of study and then practice. So thank you for being here. And I know you're excited about the texts that we're going to be using today, which are unique to the world of meditation and contemporary spirituality.
Yeah. I'm just trying to get my AirPods in so that we're not having a feedback loop. I'm like, because I know that happens. And give me 1 second to get that set up. And then a speaker. There you go. Perfect. Okay, I can hear. I can hear and you can hear, and it's not disruptive. So this is exciting for me because in my mind, sometimes there's a discrepancy between the like halachic tradition, which is our legal tradition, and the spiritual tradition that we're cultivating, that we've been working on together. And so when I find something that I can see the bridge between them, where it's very clear to me that they are talking about the same thing in a different way, it gets me really excited. It gets me really excited. So this is I've got my stack of books over here, which I got to revisit, which is great because it's not always that we have the honor and privilege to be able to do that in the rabbinate. But I want to jump into the text together. The the concept that we're going to talk about today is community. We're going to talk about the community, and we sort of alluded to it a few times already in the times that we've met, but I've never really been able to jump into it, and I think it's a critical piece of this work is to be aligned with other people who are traveling in the same direction as us. It's so for a lot of reasons, but let's see what the tradition says, and uh, let's pull it up. So I'm gonna
You
as I
mentioned it several times in different contexts, the need
yeah.
for supportive community. So, okay, good.
Yeah, I mentioned it, but I never got to. I want to take a look inside because there's a level of, even on the level of the legal minds of the people who are really technical, even on that level, they talk about something that I think we will be surprised by. So let's take a look. Let's take a look together. I'm going to share this screen.
I like the element of drama in the classroom.
Yeah, that's I need to be able to host, and I can share. Yes? Nope. I need to co-host. So I think I need to be able to co-host so that I can
Here
share.
she comes, Maya to the rescue.
Yay! Oh, there you go. Okay. Okay. So here we are. So there's just okay. You know what? I don't need to share this for a second. Just in case. So just a little bit of background. There's the progression of our tradition was slow and over the course of hundreds of years, and it used to be much more chaotic with the Talmud. If you read the Talmud or you look at the Talmud, there's all kinds of arguments, and they don't know. Nobody knows which way is up and down. You never know really what the answer is most of the time. There's no clear answer. And then Rambam came along and said, "No, it's very clear. This is how you do it." And then everybody was up in arms, like, "No, it's not that clear. My people do it like this, and my people do it like that." And they started to do it by committee in some way. And the next preeminent code, meaning sort of trying to take the Talmud and saying, this is how we live, this is how we should really live. So Rambam did it, and then the Tur did it, but the Tur did it a little different. We're gonna read the Tur. He did it by committee. He showed, this is what Rambam says, this is what my father said, and this is a third guy, Rif, the Ran, and the Rosh and the Rambam. So he sort of takes it by committee. And he brings forward the whole Talmud. Rambam skipped that. Rambam just said, this is what it is. Go find the quotations yourself. Tur gives us quotations. And then his son came along after him, yeah, and his son wrote what we now know as the Shulchan Aruch. which many of us have heard of. Maybe we don't know what it is, but it's the next iteration of what's considered our codes. It's considered our first codes. It's preeminent. So we're going to look at the Torah first, and then we're going to go to the Shulchan Aruch so that we can see how over the span of 500, 600 years, rabbis related to this one topic, how we communicate with each other, how we live with each other and pray with each other, and the importance of community. So we're going to use prayer and community to talk about the bigger sense of what it means to be aligned with each other, what it means to put ourselves with each other, and what happens when we do that. What is the possibility of doing that together? So here is the text again, now that I've talked. Okay. So if there's somebody who wants to read, I think we can unmute. You can unmute yourselves. I think at this point, I'm not sure if you're allowed to, but I can also unmute you. So I think I should be able to unmute you. Who wants to read?
I can read.
Oh, thank you, Gail.
In our 13th century preeminent code of Jewish law, the Torah, written by Yaakov ben Asher, fourth Ben Asher, brings forward a discussion about the sanctity of communal prayer that far predated him. There he quotes the second century rabbi, Rabbi Yohanan, who implored an individual's prayers are only heard in the synagogue, or rather in community.
Thank you. Okay, pause there. Pause. Uh-oh. Big trouble. We're in big trouble. Oh, what are we supposed to do now? We're only able to be heard in the synagogue? What are we doing here? How's that supposed to work? Right? Are we being heard? Are we not being heard? Oh my gosh. That's the second century. Now what's the next piece? Gail, please continue.
Okay. Rabbi Nachman, a fourth century rabbi. And if one cannot pray with the community, they should do their best to pray at the same time the community prays.
Afilu hu anus. Even if you have no choice. Okay, sound familiar? If you have no choice and you cannot go to the synagogue, sound familiar? So what do you do? Tov lo lechaven hasha'ah. Make sure it's good for you to align yourself to the time, the hour, that moment that people in the community are praying. So I'm curious why you think this is important to Rabbi Nachman. And I think we can raise hands, and instead of breaking out into groups, we have a little bit of a smaller crew today. So if you're interested in sharing, I'd love to hear. What do you think it's so important that we align ourselves time-wise? And if you think, do you think there's something magical about it? What's going on there? Why should it matter? If you can't do it, anyway, it's not being heard, right? It's not in the synagogue, so what's the point? What's the difference?
Well, is there some sense that because they're praying in the synagogue at the same time, your prayer is joined to them?
Perhaps.
Some kind of mystical sense that that it goes up to God along with theirs.
I don't know. Any others? Thank you. Any others? Or are you raising your hand, Renee?
I'm raising my hand.
Oh, who's raising their hand? Oh,
Betty.
Betty. Oh,
Yes.
good. Thank you.
Well, I think that in Judaism, we are supposed to be responsible for one another. And maybe, perhaps, this is part of that. The fact that if we pray together, this is, like, for example, during the high holidays, we do things in plural. We do not do it in singular.
Ashamnu, right? Bagadnu, we say
Yes.
it.
It is
Yeah.
plural, not singular. And I think perhaps this is something similar to that.
Interesting. I'm coming back to the full screen. but I want to keep hearing if there's other people who have thoughts or why you think it's so important to these rabbis that even if we can't meet together, if the beginning starts by saying you only hear, God is only hearing you, possibly hearing you, if you're together in the same synagogue. Now it's saying, well, maybe it's not just the synagogue, maybe it's actually in community. Do we have to do it together somehow? So why is it that we have to line up our timing, right? And that this is the next question. I think that he does give an answer. So here's the answer. I'm going to share the answer now. I just cut it off because I want to build the suspense. So here we go. Rabbi Nachman says, as it is written, and my prayer to you, God, should be in a time when you want it. Va'ani tefilati lecha Adonai et ratzon. Right, have you heard that? Rabbi Teller must have sung that to you once or twice before. It's a beautiful one. Right, et ratzon. What is this? My prayer, lecha, is for you, God. May it be in et ratzon, in a time that you desire, a desired time for you. And he says, and this is how we explain it. We explain that verse, the drash, or darshinan, Ematai hu et ratzon. When is this et ratzon? When is this time that God desires our prayers? B'sha'a she'atzibur mitpalelin. That time of the desired time is the hour when we pray together. When we line ourselves up to pray, that is the time when we can line up, when God wants to hear us. So, what does that mean, right? So it's saying it's not enough to just be on your own, to float around just like you want to be. You got to line yourself up with other people. So that's the tour. Okay, so if I'm showing you my books here, I'll do a show and tell. I've got my tour here, which you can see it's all in like kind of Rashi script. It's beautiful, a beautiful book.
Yeah.
And then later on, there's the Shulchan Aruch. This is his son, who's called the Beit Yosef, who comes and sort of takes the tour and boils it down into a little bit less of a debate back and forth. So the 100 years later, so now we're actually stretching, even though we're using the tour, who's only within the 100 years of his son, he actually brings this discussion all the way 1,000 years earlier. So we're starting from the year somewhere around 100, 200, and now we've come to, like, let's say, the 13th century, and now we're going to progress even further forward in time. So here we go. There you go. So much. A few hundred years after... does somebody else want to pick up and read?
I'll
make
read.
It bigger. Oh, thank you.
A few hundred years after Rabbi Ben Asher's tour was written, Rabbi Yosef Karo published the Shulchan Aruch. In the Shulchan Aruch, Rabbi Karo writes on this topic, and this is the law for those who live in the outskirts and who don't have a minyan. In any case, they should pray their morning and evening prayers at the time when the community prays.
Exactly. So this is not just for times like ours. What if you live somewhere far away, right? And you can't come all the way into town. You live out in Katy, for example, and you don't want to come into town every day. So find out what time your community is praying and pray at that time. So the big question that I keep asking myself all throughout this is like, why? Who cares? Like, what's the difference, right? Doesn't God always hear us? What's this time? We're sort of trying to line up. I thought that God always hears us, and that it doesn't matter. God is always in your heart. And so I'm just like, there's part of me that's wondering, so who cares? Like, what is this mess? Why are they making such a mess about this? Right? We know minyan is important. Okay, great, fine. But why? Because couldn't I just go out onto a mountaintop and pray? Does God not hear me then? Right? I think the answer, I mean, I don't know. I'm curious what y'all think. Why are we making such a big deal about this timing and the community? I'm waiting for some people. I know that normally on these calls you don't get to speak, but now you have an opportunity to contribute in this setting. So I'd love to hear what you're thinking.
Rabbi,
Yes.
frankly, I am really also thinking that ideally God should hear us no matter when and no matter where.
Right?
So I'm having a very hard time with this. So please clarify.
Oh yeah, we'll get there. Don't worry, I won't leave you like this.
Okay.
I'm not going to leave you suspended here. But I do think it's important to start to ask this question because our tradition is putting a lot of emphasis on this community aspect, but it's also telling us from another angle, it's saying, and we know that we can always access God all the time. We can always access God. We can always pray, and our prayers are always heard. Yes, I see another hand up. Yeah, go ahead.
Is there a different feeling when you are with a community because of like the energy of the community?
Ooh.
That yeah, I mean, sometimes it's distracting, honestly, at a synagogue because people are talking and you're trying to concentrate. But
Sure.
but just a psychological energy that they may not have had the words for it, but they were picking up.
Could be. Could be. Anybody else have that feeling? Something
Okay,
different?
excuse me, my hand is up again. So this goes back also to the idea of the minyan. Why 10? Why couldn't it be 20? Why couldn't it be 7?
Good question. I think there are traditional answers to that. Yeah, Gail, go ahead.
I think this is bringing up more questions than answers for me. Like, oh, another Jewish guilt trip. I woke up at 10 o'clock and the minion was on from 9 to 10 this morning and I missed it. Oh, what am I going to do now? So.
Oh, no. Okay, let's pause for one moment. Thank you, Gail, for saying that. In no form do you ever get permission to guilt yourself based on my teachings? Okay? You don't get it. That's not a permission that I'm giving. So this is a suggestion, right? So it's saying if you can, maybe there's a different energy knowing. So anybody has joined Rabbi Teller's prayers when he's leading us in prayer, like quite beautifully. So tell me, does that feel different to you now, even now, right? Different to you than if you pray on your own. If you pray on your own versus that, it feels different, right?
Yes.
It feels different. So it's not that your prayer, it's like a guilt thing. It's saying if you can, there's something special about that. That's a little bit different than if you prayed on your own. So I want to share a few thoughts thoughts and some science actually that I've become aware of. That I thought it was just how I feel, but it turns out it's not just how I feel. So when I meditate, when I practice alone, when I pray alone, I love it. First of all, I'm an introvert. I've said that to you before. I love it. I love being alone. I love solitude. It's great. Can y'all hear me? I'm just making sure. Okay. I love it. I love being alone. And I'll say this is also true. When I meditate, if you've ever meditated in community, and we've done it here in this context, but if you've done it in person, what you get a sense of if you're paying attention is that the same is true of prayer, is that there's a certain kind of accountability or energy that we get that's not our own. It is a collective energy that is coming through in that space. So whereas I might be able to not practice so often, but when I line myself up with a group of people who are committed to practicing for half an hour, if I tried to do that at home, that half an hour might be unbearable. Like I might get up in the middle. I might be tempted to get up in the middle. But if I'm praying, if I'm meditating with other people, it doesn't need to be 10. But it doesn't, right? All of a sudden, now having that whole group there, I feel accountable to them. I feel energized by them. I feel even lifted by them. And so I'm able to practice in a way. So this is my experience. I noticed that in my experience. And that's why I'm so excited about this text. So there's research that has shown now that when a group of people, and they can measure this now because they have mobile EEG, so they can put nodes on your brain and on your head, and they can measure your brainwave activity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they have something called fMRI, so that they can actually watch they can watch the brain activity and the way that your brain is lighting up when you're in the same space as each other. And what they've found is that actually what I experience and what the rabbis are talking about in terms of aligning ourselves with each other and there being some greater power to that kind of experience is not imagined. That when we are in the same space and are aligned in the same purpose, in the same goal of prayer or meditation or whatever it is, or even just listening to a story that's engaging us in the same direction, or listening to somebody play music in the same direction, that what happens is, even though we all came into the same space with our own energies, our own wavelengths, our own vibrations, that what happens is through the course of the time that we're in the space together, this is the test was done in the same space. And I'm wondering if it happens in time not in the same space. Like if we're all in our own individual spaces, and this is going to be one of the ongoing research projects of Zoom if we keep using it, right? Can we recreate this? But what happens is, if you're in the same space, literally the wavelengths in your brain match up to each other. Like, it's not just that we're imagining it. We walk in separate on our own plane, and when we are together in that space, when we walk out, we're at the same place. And they've shown this with fMRI and with EEG, right? So now science is starting to be able to observe something that we could only feel 2,000 years ago, but that now we can observe it scientifically, which is that when we come together for a shared purpose, we actually energize each other. We can actually energize each other. And so it's really important, actually, who you energize yourself with, because you're going to walk out of that space with that energy, right? So choose your community carefully, right? Because that is the effect, whether you like it or not. Right, whether you like it or not. I like this image that I also, in researching that particular science, there's a part of me that I always felt this, but I couldn't confirm it, is that, our bodies are mostly water. And if you've ever played music or put a cup of water next to a speaker, which is just vibrating the air, right? What you notice is in certain vibrations, the water actually starts to ripple as a result of the sound moving through it. And I wondered to myself, am I just imagining that? But what they did is they actually went into like a music shop, and they started playing different resonant sounds. And what they found was that the instruments began to vibrate. The other instruments began to vibrate with that same sound. They weren't being touched, by the way. They were not being physically touched. And all of a sudden, the guitars and the string instruments are vibrating with the same resonance. And so I find that quite interesting. And the question I'm asking myself now is, how do we do that virtually? And actually, what I'm finding in my experience is that actually there is something happening here.
Mhm.
So I thought it had to be in the same space.
Right.
But now I'm not so sure.
In the same
So
space, yes, I'll call it sympathetic resonance.
sympathetic resonance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a word.
That's really cool. And then, yeah, the question is, can it have, right? Yet sounds like your instinct is that it could happen in different spaces as long as we're sharing the same time.
Yeah, and I'm wondering about that, the time part,
Yeah, I think,
because
yeah, it seems to me the time part has the capability of becoming sanctified.
yeah, it's almost like we collectively can take a chunk of time and sanctify it together
Right.
by coming together at the same time. And that becomes what is et ratzon, that's the desired time, because we're coming together and uplifting it together. And that process actually uplifts it. I'm wondering if that's the case. So here's another one that I want to see. This is 17th century. So now we've gone from 2nd century all the way to 17th century. Way far, far away. All of it in the span. I know I didn't warn you we were going to do time travel today. Who wants to read this one? Connie, you want to do it?
The
Okay,
Magen Avraham. We're ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
The Magen Avraham, a much later commentator in the 17th century, explained the words of his predecessors of why we should pray with the community, or at the very least align ourselves with the timing and communal rhythms of our community, with a short but powerful quote. He quotes 4 powerful words from Proverbs. The king's glory is in the multitude of the nation.
I love first of all, thank you for reading that. My punctuation and grammar is terrible, but what are you going to do? Not perfect. But here's the in Hebrew, Berav am hadrat melech. It just when you like say it there's a certain it's poetic.
Yes.
Berav am hadrat melech. The glory of God, of the King, is within the nation. It's within the nation. There's no separating it out. So I prematurely, I think, pulled away the shared screen. So because I want to read this one, please, together. Do you want to continue, please, Connie?
Sure. In a commentary on the Torah, the Knesset Hagolala, this point is driven home. He writes, even if the community has a lot of sinful people in it, one should not refrain from praying with the community. When we come together, we create a container for holiness.
Ooh.
Wow.
Ooh. That's some stuff right there. What if they suck? Right? We just talked about how it's so careful. We need to be careful of who we come in contact with and what the energy is and what the resonance is, right? Maybe it's important who I'm hanging out with. But in this case, it's saying, actually, no. There's something almost magical that happens when we are together with other people. And whether their design is the same or they're like wicked, right? Something is going to transformative will happen in that space that will be beneficial for everybody. And that is how the divine operates. So there's another text that I don't have it here with me, but I do have another rabbi who's wiser than me here with me, so it's like almost the same thing. But there's a concept that, it's not even a concept. There in the Holy Temple, they had something called Ketoret Samim. They had this incense offering that was made on a regular basis in the synagogue, in the temple. I don't remember how often. I think it was pretty regular. But it was comprised of a variety of different kinds of spices. Some of them had no real smell. Some of them had very nice smells. But there's one of those smells that is rotten. It is disgusting. Like everybody would agree. I don't remember the name of it, but everybody agrees that it's... What's that?
I guess the chelbona.
The chelbona. See? I told you. I had another rabbi. That's all I need. So, the chelbona is disgusting. But if you want to do that offering, you cannot do it without the chelbona. You must have that disgusting smell within it. Otherwise, you got it wrong. It didn't work. It's not going to work otherwise. There's something about having all the versions all together in the same space. Otherwise, it's not really fully the community, right? And sometimes we think to ourselves, if only that one rotten egg would leave, right? If only that one, and I think the smell of it is something like rotten eggs. I don't know 100%, but because I don't think I've ever smelled it. But we always think to ourselves when we're in community and or we're in a class or whatever, right? There's always somebody who we're like, damn it, this guy, them again, right? But what this is telling us, and what that analogy is saying, is like, you need all of it. You need all of the community. You don't maybe understand why, or you may not even like their individual smell, but together, the smell we create all together is divine, rises up all together, right? So we have to remind ourselves and remember that this is actually a communal activity, and whether I think there are a few rotten eggs or not, it's better that we be together. It's better to be together, because the truth is that all of us have parts of ourselves that are rotten. All of us, right? There's no exception, even the rabbi. Well, maybe not the rabbi, but I do. We all have parts of us that are not the best. We're not perfect. No single one of us is perfect, but it is in that imperfection that if we offer all of ourselves, even our imperfection, that's what will rise. So one more text, and then we'll wrap it up. And this is the one that I love the most. This is the crescendo. I'm sorry, I'm building it up too much. It's probably not that exciting. It's text, remember? I'm a rabbi, remember, I'm a rabbi.
I'm right with you. Right with you.
Who's going to read for us?
I'll read it. The 18th century commentator Leket Hakemach, Rab Moshe Hagiz wrote, "There is a difference between the individual and the community. The community doesn't die."
Yeah. So hold on, let's take a second to let that sink in. יש חילוק בין יחיד לציבור, דאין ציבור מתים. Okay. What does that even mean? What? Right? It's like the community doesn't die? So this comes back to the concept that we talked about in the Shema, the oneness. What is that oneness? What is that spark within us? Each and every one of us has a spark within us. That is what animates us. It allows us to connect. It allows us to pay attention. It is a compass. It is a guide that if we pay attention to it, will be there for us at all times. Ehyeh imach. I will be with you. And what does that mean? What does that mean? That the divine is saying to Moses, the burning bush, Ehyeh imach, I'll be with you. I'm right there with you. So if you are able to start to notice that there is something that is not you necessarily, that is able to pay attention to everything that is arising in your life, then you will be connected to the divine as it's arising all the time. And that quality is not yours or mine or any single one of ours. It's echad. It's one thing that transcends time and space and flesh and this universe. So when we're connected to that part of us, and we do it not only on our own, but together, understanding that that part of us doesn't belong to me or you or anyone, it runs through all things, then we join something timeless together. We as individuals, I as an individual will not be on this planet forever. I won't. But if I can align myself with that energy, with the energy of our community, and I can contribute to that in some way, and I can allow it to contribute to me, then it doesn't matter that I'm going to expire, that I'm not going to be here forever, because I will have already joined into something that is timeless. I will have put my lot in with the community that continues and moves forward, whether I'm here or not. So this whole concept of aligning ourselves with the community is existential, actually. It's saying, if you want your spirit and energy to move forward into timelessness, into the thing that continues without us, that God, the God spark. So pay attention to the God spark within you, to the ability to be aware, and join the community in doing that. Bring your energy to meet the community's energy and transform together into being one energy that moves forward into timelessness. So I'm going to take, I said a lot. I want to take some questions if there are some questions, and then we'll do the practice of today and we'll sign off.
I have a question, Rabbi, or maybe it's a combination of a question and a comment. Excuse me. I think that we probably all have heard that when a person is ill, you ask the community to pray for that person. And I believe that it has been, perhaps it has been proven, I don't know that for sure, but I know personally people that have been in that situation where they felt that the communal prayers really have an influence or can have an influence in that person's well-being, in the person recovering in a better way.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, is that I didn't mean to cut you off. Was that what you wanted to say?
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, there actually is research on that I like to quote from a lot. So the research showed basically they had a few different test groups. They had a group of people praying for others who didn't know that they were being prayed for, and they had a group of people who were praying and the people knew that they were being prayed for. And what they found is that when someone prays for another person, but the other person doesn't know that they're being prayed for, it doesn't help. But when somebody knows that you are praying for them and you are praying for them, it does help. it actually has, they actually show that the recovery times and like a whole host of different factors were amplified and repaired and healed because of the person knew that somebody was praying for them. So I always say to people, when we do the Mishaberach, or we go around and pray for people or say their names or whatever it is, I say, great, we're going to do this together, but now it's your job to make a phone call to them or send them an email or a text or something that also lets them know that they are in your prayers, that they are in our prayers, because that's where the connectivity happens. It's important not just to do it on your own. You have to communicate it. And I think the communication is part of the medicine. I think the communication is part of the medicine. Any others? I guess it's just good. Yeah, we got it. Yeah. Now we just internalized it, and we're all gonna be eternal now. We're all lined up. Connie, you look like you're about to say something. No? Uh-oh.
Lives on,
Connie?
live their life that way.
Sorry, Connie, can you start again? We couldn't hear you in the beginning. Go ahead.
Said the part about the community lives on, that's very heavy. I think Jews live their life that way, that the community will carry on, whether you've had an exit for this world or not. It's comforting. It's comforting that it will go on.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we, in whatever stage in our development, we reinvest and into the community, and we try to do as much as we can, whether that's through our children or our children's children, or through creating tools and planting trees, so, metaphoric and literal trees that will only come to fruit well beyond our years, right? We try to think forward about how we can contribute to the next generation and the next generation, and do that in a way that they say that, I don't know if you've ever seen that soap brand. It's called Seventh Generation. If you've been in it's like a Whole Foods kind of a foodsy kind of a brand, but it's called Seventh Generation because, and I love the name of it, because what it's saying is when you make a decision about how you should act in the world, you should think about how your action will impact 7 generations later. Right? So it calls you to bring to consciousness, what is the impact of my decision now, and how will that come to bear on the community and my ancestors down the line? And there was the rabbi of Wilshire Boulevard synagogue, I don't know the name, I forgot his name, but he came to visit a few years ago. And he said that one of the most important things that we do is being a responsible ancestor in our practice. Is like, how do I see myself as, when they think back, when down the line, when the community is thinking back, how did we get to where we are, that they look at us and they say, thank you for that. Or maybe they don't even know who we are by then, right? Like, who knows if our names will even survive. But if we planted the tree and they got the benefit, that's enough. Right? They can eat from that carob tree. It's the beauty of this practice, is that when we are in community, it's not just us anymore. It takes us to a transcendence. And that's what I think it means by et ratzon. It's aligning ourselves with each other. It's that moment of desirability, because we rise together. Together we arise, whether all of us are on the same page or not 100%. We can arise together. So let's do a practice. I want to start to pay attention to how if you do practice on your own, and I encourage you to do that, to take these practices and practice on your own in between times. I think next week is going to be Shavuot, so we won't be, is that true? So wait, Is it before Shavuot? Are we meeting or aren't we meeting next week? I don't even know what's going on in my life anymore. I think, Rabbi Teller, you're muted, though. I can't hear you. Are you unmuting? Oh, is next week? Are we on for next week or we aren't? I don't remember.
12. Yeah, I think we're on. Yeah.
We are. Okay, so it'll be preparation for Shavuot so we can practice. So yeah, so between now and next week, let's practice. We'll practice and notice if you can, even if it's for 5 minutes. 5 minutes is good. Set a timer, sit for 5 minutes. It's great, right? If you can do 10 minutes, 10 minutes is good too. But 5 is good. 3 minutes is fine too. 1 minute is fine. Better than 0 minutes. And notice, I want you to start to notice what the gift of practicing like this is. What is the gift of, what is the extra energy? What is the extra potential of practicing together? As opposed to when the screen is off and it's just you. Yeah? So like sometimes I know I can feel this in the practice. I get agitated if I'm in a group, and then I just kind of allow myself to be carried by the group. And I think that's an opportunity for us. I think we all can't all be carried by the group at once. Some of us got to be carrying, right? But I think it's an exchange. It's an exchange. So but if you need it, take it. The rabbis are going to be holding no, we also get from the group too. Sometimes we just we do the same thing. Sometimes y'all are carrying us. I know it looks like we're carrying, but sometimes y'all really are carrying us. So thank you for that. So let's feel that as we practice. And today we're going to pay attention to if there are 6 things we can be aware of that we can really know, being 5 of them being our traditional senses: sight, smell, taste, hearing, touch. The 6th is our thoughts. We can be aware of those too. I think there's a 7th thing there. And the 7th thing is our God spark, our ability to be aware. And that, when we align ourselves with that, and when we align ourselves with that and notice what those 6 other things are doing, those thoughts and those feelings and sensations, and then when we do it in community especially, then we are transcending together. And you can use each other's energy. I welcome you to use my energy, to practice together so that you can light up your own spark and then do that for others too. Bringing your attention to your breath. Allowing yourself to rest your attention on how your breath fills your body. And if you feel like you want just a little bit of more breath, then extend your belly to allow more in. Just taking a few breaths to arrive, to settle down. And noticing that there is an aspect of yourself that is not part of your senses. It's divine. It's timeless. And allowing that part of you to notice the ways that each of your senses are activated, whether thoughts or any of the others. Feeling the energy that we exchange and share and uplift as we practice together. And if you get lost, you will inevitably get lost coming back to your breath. Coming back to the part of you that can pay attention. And spending even just one more breath with that. Noticing the give and take as you energize the group. It also energizes you. You even take a few moments to experiment with what it's like to be carried by the group. By the community. Taking note of how you feel now and comparing it to how you felt before. And giving gratitude to the group of people who have contributed their energy. And together we've been uplifted and hopefully in et ratzon, in a moment desired by the divine. So thank you. Thanks so much. I wanted to also circle back to Gail's comment. You know, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. it's always prayer time somewhere, right? So no matter where you are, there's always some room for that. So thank you. Thanks for having me. Thank you for
Thank you so
listening.
much. Yasher koach. Deeply appreciated and received.
Good, thank you. June 2nd, I'll remind you again, next week, June 2nd, we're having Jewish Zen master Norman Fisher.
Oh, wow.
Have you heard of his name?
Yeah, I have a book or two of his, yeah.
Yeah, he has an amazing translation of Psalms. So he's going to be speaking to the Mindfulness Center. So 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. on a Tuesday night. It is, I mean, when you think about like the pinnacle of teachers, he's there. That's where he lives. So he's going to share with us. The format of the time is going to be that will show up on time because he's going to start the beginning with some practice, some guided practice. He's then going to read for us some of his translations of Psalms. He's going to give us a talk, and then there will be time for Q&A. So that's June 2nd. And if you've been waiting for the moment to go away on retreat and to deepen your practice, if you feel like it's not for you, it's not for you. But if you feel like, I don't know, maybe, so come talk to me. The answer is probably yes. June 8th through 13th, I'll be leading a virtual retreat. Before, you would have had to fly to Asheville, and you would have had to secure a room, and you'd have to worry, if I snore, what about my roommate? You know? And now, or what if they snore? And now you'll be able to do that at home with a significantly lower cost. So if you're interested in that, please let me know, and we'll give you the information for that as well. So June 2nd. What's that?
Is the information on your website?
Not yet. No,
Okay.
I'm behind on a lot of things. That's one of them.
Problem. June 2nd and then 8th through 13th.
June 2nd and then the 8th through the 13th. It's going to be a week long. It'll be a fantastic opportunity to deepen your practice and to align with a community of people who are on the same schedule. So thanks,
Beautiful.
everybody.
All right. Have a great day. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.